19 ancient stories that help you realize the secret to becoming successful that successful people don't want you to know. Story 1. Why should we live kindly? An ancient proverb says, human nature is innately good. This suggests that humans are born with kindness in their hearts. Therefore, when life puts us in a position where we must make a choice, we should not hesitate to choose kindness. One time, I took a taxi. Just a few minutes after getting in, the driver suddenly pulled over. With a shaky voice, he said, "Could you wait a moment? I haven't had dinner yet, and I have diabetes." He then hurriedly took out a dry sandwich from his box and ate it hastily. Watching this scene, I felt moved and bought a bottle of water from a nearby newsstand to give him. He looked at me with a deeply grateful expression, and at that moment, I thought, he is probably a father, a husband, working hard to support his family. I suddenly remembered my own father, who was also a taxi driver and went through similar hardships. During tough financial times, my father worked tirelessly, often eating just a few bites of bread while waiting at a red light. After years of irregular meals, he developed a stomach ulcer. One night, he suffered from severe stomach pain and had to temporarily stop driving, apologizing to his passengers. Seeing his condition, the couple in the car not only stayed with him but also helped him to a nearby hospital, helping him through the pain. Although this memory is old, every time my father recalls it, he feels emotional. He often says, "Good people are sure to encounter goodness in return." One summer, I represented my hospital in discussions with a nursing home regarding health care for the elderly. The manager there was initially unfriendly, but I patiently chatted with an elderly gentleman, offering him a cup of tea when he coughed heavily. Later, I was surprised to find out that this elderly gentleman was Director Tran, who decided to work with us and even signed multiple additional contracts. In an archaeological expedition in the Sahara Desert in 1814, a team buried the remains of those who had been trapped there. Thanks to the gravestones they set up, when they later encountered a sandstorm and lost their way, they were able to find their way out of the desert, driven by the kindness that had compelled them to help those unfortunate souls earlier. These stories show that kindness is not just a virtue but a guiding principle in life, helping us maintain our values and avoid going astray. This world becomes a better place when we treat each other with compassion. Intelligence may be a gift, but kindness is a choice. So, if life ever puts us in a position where we must choose, let us choose kindness. Second story, chasing wealth without virtue, the greatest bankruptcy in life. A life spent accumulating wealth without accumulating virtue will ultimately end in poverty. This story tells of two wealthy men who neglected virtue, leading to their disastrous downfalls. These accounts were recorded by the Qing dynasty scholar Dao Ding in his book Zhuohua Zhiguo. The first man, Li Yuanqing, lived in the Jiangyan area of Jinshan County. He amassed wealth by buying farmland from those in financial distress, frequently lending them money at high interest rates. Due to compounded interest, many people soon found themselves unable to repay and were forced to mortgage their land. Over 20 years, Li Yuanqing acquired thousands of acres through this practice. He had a son, Li Chang, who was known for his indulgent lifestyle, showing no interest in the family's business. By the age of 20, Li Chang was deeply involved in gambling and reckless spending. Each time he went out, he would bring property deeds to trade for silver with loan sharks. When he lost all his money, he would write IOUs without any intention of repaying. Those who knew Li Chang was easily deceived would scheme to take advantage of him. In just a few years, Li Chang had squandered the family's massive fortune and died in poverty. The second man, Chen Xingfeng, lived in Danyan County. He was originally a simple farmer, but one year, thanks to a bountiful harvest and shrewd trading, he managed to stockpile nearly 4,000 bushels of barley. The following year, a severe drought caused barley prices to soar, but Chen Qingfeng refused to sell, waiting until the price peaked. When supplies dwindled, he offered to exchange 1 bushel of barley, mixed with husks, for 1 acre of land. In a short time, Chen Qingfeng acquired more than 5,000 acres, becoming one of the wealthiest in the area. However, Chen Qingfeng had no sons to carry on his lineage, only managing to have a son named Chen Wenhong at the age of 68. Chen Wenhong grew up with little regard for money. When he went out, he often took large sums with him and would spend it all before returning home. When the court decreed that each region needed a wealthy household to store grain reserves, the task fell to Chen Wenhong's family. Due to his wasteful spending and inability to collect debts, Chen Wenhong gradually had to sell off his properties to make ends meet. When Chen Wenhong passed away, the immense wealth accumulated by Chen Qingfeng had entirely vanished. The family was left destitute, with descendants working as gatekeepers to make a living. Since then, the name Chen Wenhong became a way for Danyang residents to curse those who squander their wealth. The ancients said, "Do not hoard earthly treasures, instead, gather treasures in heaven." Those who are virtuous, cultivate themselves, and act rightly will be blessed with long-lasting fortune. Meanwhile, those who are greedy, accumulating wealth without virtue, will ultimately end up with nothing. The saying, "With virtue, you can eat to your heart's content," holds true. Without virtue, amassing material possessions is like trying to hold water in a basket. Third story, to achieve great things, one must embrace patience and composure. Ancient sages believed that to accomplish great deeds, the key is not only talent but also composure, the ability to maintain calm and patience. Those with composure can face difficulties steadily, unaffected by distractions, making sound decisions and handling issues effectively. Once, Zhang Guofan, a renowned official of the Qing dynasty, had 3 talented men recommended to him by Li Hongzhang for critical positions. Instead of meeting them immediately, Zhang Guofan observed them discreetly from afar. After half an hour, he noticed that 2 of the men were restless while waiting, pacing back and forth and showing impatience. Only one man stood calmly, gazing at the blue sky, seemingly unaffected by the wait. Zhang Guofan then told Li Hongzhang that only one of the 3 was worth considering. He explained, "Those who seek to accomplish great things must have the ability to remain calm and patient, undisturbed by the irritations around them." As expected, the man chosen by Zhang Guofan later became General Lu Mingchuan, renowned for his patience and resilience. Not only for officials but for anyone aspiring to succeed, composure is essential. A composed person can control their emotions, remain calm, and stay determined in the face of challenges. This calmness forms the foundation that helps them overcome pressures and confront difficulties. In another story from Zhang Guofan's youth, one day as he was reading, a thief hid in his house, waiting for an opportunity. However, seeing Zhang Guofan's intense focus as he read line by line, turning each page carefully, the thief grew frustrated. Eventually, the thief revealed himself and mockingly told Zhang Guofan, "With such slow progress, what can you even learn?" The thief then recited an entire passage from memory and left. Rather than feeling discouraged, Zhang Guofan became even more diligent and determined in his studies. Ultimately, he became a historical figure celebrated for his achievements, while the thief was lost to the tides of time. According to Zhang Guofan, to know if someone is capable of great things, observe their ability to endure pressure and maintain composure. Composure is a virtue that requires cultivation and serves as a cornerstone for sages in dealing with others and handling important matters. Story 4th, Lessons in Raising Children. Don't forget humble beginnings, even in wealth. The ancients taught that raising children should be connected with self-cultivation and virtue. The following stories about the child-rearing approaches of Zhuge Liang, Ko Zhuan, and Su Mian have been passed down through generations, offering profound lessons. Zhuge Liang teaches his son to have high aspirations. Zhuge Liang, who dedicated his life to his country without pursuing personal gains, emphasized self-cultivation and inner peace in a letter he wrote to his son, Zhuge Zhan, when the boy was 8. He wrote, "A gentleman cultivates himself through calmness and nurtures virtue through frugality. Without a tranquil mind, it is hard to achieve wisdom. Without inner peace, success is difficult." Zhuge Liang hoped his son would cultivate himself to achieve tranquility and wisdom, as well as dedicate himself to lifelong learning. Thanks to these teachings, Zhuge Liang's descendants later became loyal and wise gentlemen devoted to the country, living with tranquility and attaining far-reaching wisdom. Ko Zhuan's mother teaches him not to forget poverty. Ko Zhuan, a high-ranking official during the Northern Song dynasty, was born into poverty and relied on his mother's weaving to support the family. When he passed the imperial examination, his mother fell ill and reminded him to hold fast to his morals and never forget his humble origins. She left him a self-painted scroll with a poem. "Alone by the lamp reading with care. Enduring hardships, so you may succeed. Cultivate yourself for the people's sake. When wealthy, remember poverty's creed." Later, when he had risen to the position of prime minister, Ko Zhuan unexpectedly received this scroll from his mother's midwife. Reading each line, he was moved to tears, recalling her teachings and immediately ending his lavish birthday celebration. From that day on, Ko Zhuan remained honest, caring deeply for the people, and became known as a model prime minister in the Song dynasty. Su Mian leaves a legacy of virtue for his descendants. Su Mian, an official during the Liang dynasty, held high office throughout his life but remained frugal and honest. When friends suggested he accumulate wealth for his children, Su Mian responded, "Others may leave wealth, I will leave a good name. If my descendants have virtue and talent, they can build their own lives. If they lack virtue, money is useless." He often taught his children to value character and morality over wealth, to be honest and righteous. Despite his high rank, Su Mian never amassed wealth, leaving only a legacy of integrity and virtue. His children grew up to be virtuous and capable, reaping the rewards of the ethical foundation set by their father. These stories illustrate the importance of raising children with a focus on virtue and integrity. Parents often wish to leave the best for their children, but no material wealth can be as lasting as instilling principles of morality and noble aspirations. The lessons of virtue, wisdom, and resilience that parents teach become a solid foundation, enabling children to grow and build sustainable futures that bring genuine and enduring benefit. Story 5. 1,000 incenses lit by an elderly couple cannot compare to a butcher's redemption. An old saying goes, "True reverence for Buddha comes from the heart." 10,000 sticks of incense lit cannot compare to an unwavering faith. Long ago, there was an elderly couple who spent their lives burning incense, praying to Buddha, preaching kindness, and collecting the ashes after each prayer. Over time, they filled a sack with these ashes. When they were old, they decided to take the sack westward to visit the Buddha himself and show their devotion. After traveling a few days, they encountered a butcher preparing to slaughter a pig. They advised him that killing animals creates bad karma. The butcher listened sincerely and replied, "If you are on your way to see the Buddha, please take me with you. I, too, wish to repent and change my ways." The couple agreed and asked the butcher to carry their sack of ashes. Gratefully, he accepted, believing that if he followed them with faith, he would meet Buddha. The three continued on their journey and eventually reached a great river. It was said that the other shore was the realm of the Buddhas, but the river was impassable. They knelt down to pray, and after a while, a golden eggplant fell from above. A bodhisattva appeared and said, "Whoever can cook this eggplant will be able to cross the river and meet Buddha." Then, the bodhisattva disappeared. Stunned, the three stared at the golden eggplant, wondering how they could possibly cook it. The elderly couple, disappointed, thought of their lifelong good deeds and could not believe they were being thwarted by a single eggplant. The butcher, however, calmly encouraged them, "If the bodhisattva said so, then it must be possible. Let's try cooking it." The three of them started a fire and began cooking the eggplant. After 3 days and nights of ceaseless effort, the eggplant still hadn't softened. The elderly couple grew disheartened, ready to give up and return home. But the butcher, exhausted yet determined, urged, "Let's try a bit longer. It will surely cook." The elderly couple, not believing him, left the butcher to continue on his own. On the morning of the 4th day, the butcher cried out joyfully, "The eggplant is cooked." The elderly couple rushed over, both angry and regretful. In a fit of jealousy, they threw the eggplant into the river, bitter that their lifetime of devotion could not match a single act of repentance from a butcher. Seeing the eggplant tossed into the water, the butcher didn't hesitate and leapt into the river to retrieve it. At that moment, heavenly music filled the air as the bodhisattva reappeared and pointed to the river. The butcher transformed into a golden-bodied arhat, following the bodhisattva on a cloud of good fortune. 1,000 incenses lit cannot compare to a butcher laying down his blade in repentance. Doing good deeds requires not just action but a test of true sincerity. Only steadfastness and a genuine heart of kindness can lead one to enlightenment. Story 6. Those who do good receive blessings, those who do evil invite misfortune. An ancient saying goes, "Good and evil both bring consequences, arriving uninvited and returning without delay." This reminds us that happiness or misfortune is the result of our actions, whether good or bad. The way of heaven is just, sparing no one. According to Wenchang Di Junin Ji1, a famous book from the Ming and Qing dynasties promoting virtue, the deeds of those who do good are always watched by the deities. Wenchang Di Jun, the deity who oversees human fortune, once said, "When I select someone to pass an examination, I sometimes remove their name if I find their virtue lacking. Conversely, those with strong moral character, even if less talented, may be added to the list." This shows that the gods monitor good and evil, rewarding or punishing accordingly. One example of blessings for living virtuously is the story of Lu Detu, a young man from the Ming dynasty. At 16, Lu Detu often studied in the garden of the Gu family in the countryside for peace and quiet. Hui and I, the stepdaughter of a maid in the Gu household, developed feelings for him. One evening, Hui and I secretly visited Detu's room, hinting at her desire to be alone with him. But Detu refused, advising her, "People may not know, but heaven and earth see all. Wrongdoings bring retribution." Hui and I left disappointed, and Detu quietly departed. Not long after, Lu Detu's classmate, Fan Tian, also came to use the study and ended up in an improper relationship with Hui and I. One night, Tian's father dreamed that his son had been awarded a degree, but a figure appeared in the dream, erasing Tian's name and saying, "He has acted immorally, this place now belongs to Lu Detu's day." When the official results were posted, Lu Detu had indeed passed, while Fan Tian did not. This revelation left Tian and his father deeply regretful for their lack of moral conduct. There are also stories of the consequences of immoral behavior, such as that of Fu Luyi, a talented scholar from the Qing dynasty known for speaking ill of others. Although his literary talent was exceptional, he failed to pass his exams due to his harmful words. Later, he fell seriously ill and died young, reminding others that words should also be kind and not used to harm. Finally, there is the story of a Qing dynasty scholar who repeatedly failed his examinations but remained undiscouraged. He actively encouraged others to do good, writing books advising people to avoid creating bad karma. Because of these virtuous deeds, when Chang Di-jun petitioned the heavenly emperor on his behalf, and he was granted success. After passing the exams, he lived a life of integrity, continued doing good, and helped others. These stories remind us to keep a righteous heart and live with kindness in all we do. Heaven and earth are always watching, and the results of good and evil deeds are clear. Doing good not only brings blessings to oneself, but also spreads fortune to future generations. Remember, good and evil both bring consequences, it is only a matter of time. Story 7. Why do some people accumulate bad karma instead of virtue when doing charity? Charity has long been regarded as a noble act, deserving of honor. However, there are cases where charity not only fails to accumulate virtue but even results in heavy karma. During the Ming Dynasty, in the city of Xiazhou, there was a man named Su Lu, well known for frequently doing charity work and helping the poor. The townspeople admired him and regarded him as a noble figure. A distant merchant heard of Su Lu's reputation and decided to visit him to make a donation. On his way, the merchant, delayed by nightfall, stopped at a small temple to seek shelter. At the temple, there was only the abbot and 2 young novices. After a vegetarian meal, the merchant requested a conversation with the abbot. The abbot inquired about the merchant's purpose, and the merchant explained that he had saved up some money and wished to donate it to accumulate virtue for himself and his family. Hearing this, the abbot smiled and said, "Charity should come from a pure heart. Otherwise, not only will it fail to accumulate virtue, but it will result in heavy karma." The merchant was intrigued by this comment, but, weary from his journey, quickly went to bed. In the middle of the night, he awoke to the sound of agonizing cries. Alarmed, he hurried outside to investigate. Before him was a horrifying scene, a man shackled at the hands and feet, lying in a vat of boiling oil. The merchant was stunned to realize it was Su Lu, the supposedly virtuous man he had intended to meet. A voice rang out, "Su Lu of Xiazhou, sentenced to the vat of oil for deceitfully using charity funds for personal gain. His crime is even graver for using charity as a means to enrich himself." Terrified, the merchant quickly returned to his room and went back to sleep. The next morning, he sought out the abbot and recounted the events of the previous night. The abbot smiled and explained that it was a sign, a reminder to the merchant that charity must arise from a sincere heart. If one exploits charity for personal gain, they will suffer severe karmic consequences later. Enlightened by the abbot's words, the merchant bowed in gratitude. He realized that charity is a good deed, but it must be done with genuine sincerity and integrity. Story 8. For lasting prosperity, accumulate virtue. The greatest fortune a person can possess is a kind heart. It may not be difficult to perform a good deed in a fleeting moment, but maintaining a compassionate spirit throughout one's life is truly invaluable. In business, some see others' hardships as opportunities for profit, but only those who act with kindness receive lasting blessings. In the late 19th century, there was a businessman named Guan Hui who faced bankruptcy and urgently needed a large sum of money to reinvest. The amount was considerable, and Guan Hui knew that only Tian Xin Bank, owned by Huang de Douai, could help him. He sought out Mr. Douai, requesting him to buy his assets, even offering to sell them at a low price to quickly secure capital. After listening to Guan Hui's situation, Mr. Douai sent someone to verify his circumstances, confirming everything to be true. However, instead of taking advantage of the situation, Mr. Douai purchased Guan Hui's assets at a much higher market value. Surprised, Guan Hui asked why Mr. Douai didn't seize this opportunity to make a profit. Mr. Dewey simply smiled and replied, "I'm merely holding these assets for you. When you overcome this difficulty, you can buy them back." Thanks to this timely support, Guan Hui managed to overcome his difficulties and became Mr. Dewey's most loyal business partner. With Guan Hui's strong support, Mr. Dewey's business prospered further, and he was celebrated as a god of wealth, not only for his wealth, but also for his kindness. The ancients said, "All blessings begin in the heart." One doesn't need to perform grand acts. A compassionate heart and small acts of kindness are enough to attract blessings. Those who live with kindness are accompanied by good fortune like a shadow that never leaves. As the old saying goes, those who do good may not yet see blessings, but misfortune has already stayed away. Living kindly means respecting all things, from small everyday objects to one's interactions with others. By valuing what one has and treating others with kindness, one attracts luck and prosperity in abundance. People of great virtue do not prioritize wealth but genuinely care for others. For them, money is not the end goal but a means to spread kindness. Likewise, in life, the more virtuous a person is, the greater wealth and influence they can handle. Those with true virtue enjoy long life, wealth, and power. A true gentleman adheres to a principle: it's better to lack money than to lack virtue. If one seeks lasting wealth, they must first cultivate their heart and character. When one sincerely focuses on self-cultivation and good deeds, prosperity finds its way. But if one discards virtue in the pursuit of wealth, it's like chopping down a tree for its fruit. Fortune will quickly vanish. Story 9. The honest gain more than they lose. In both ancient and modern times, people prefer to associate with and work alongside those who are honest and sincere. Such individuals often earn the trust and affection of others, even if they may sometimes be seen as foolish and suffer losses. The ancients believed that honesty aligns with universal principles, so those who live honestly are bound to receive blessings in their lives. Lu Zongdao, who lived during the Song dynasty in Anhui, is a prime example. Known for his integrity, keeping promises, and profound honesty, Lu Zongdao once served as a tutor for Crown Prince Yude, the son of Emperor Zhenzong of Song. One time, while Lu Zongdao was drinking with a friend at a tavern, he received an urgent summons from the emperor. As he was out, the messenger had to wait until he returned. When they met, the messenger anxiously asked how Lu would explain the delay to the emperor. Lu Zongdao calmly replied that he would tell the truth. The messenger was horrified, fearing Lu might face punishment, but Lu remained steadfast, insisting that lying would be a far graver offense than arriving late. Upon entering the palace, Lu candidly explained, "An old friend of mine visited, and due to his limited means, I took him to a tavern to host him, which is why I arrived late. I await your majesty's punishment." Hearing this, Emperor Zhenzong not only refrained from reprimanding Lu but praised his honesty, seeing him as a trustworthy and dependable person. The emperor often spoke to the empress about Lu's loyalty. After the emperor's death, when his son ascended the throne, Lu Zongdao became a close confidant and was highly esteemed for his honesty and loyalty. He walked the path of integrity, never compromising his conscience for personal gain. Honesty and sincerity are virtues that humanity deeply cherishes. In today's society, some may deceive others in the pursuit of gain, but after experiencing wins and losses, many come to realize that the most valuable thing they have lost is their integrity, while the things they fought to acquire are merely fleeting. Story 10. The Buddha's Tears and the Lesson of Inner Strength. During his journey to spread the Dharma, Buddha Shakyamuni often faced interference from demons. Despite this, he always demonstrated compassion, resolve, and the power of his teachings. Once, as he was about to give a sermon, he confronted the demon king and his legion, who sought to disrupt his community. The demon king threatened Buddha, I will send my forces to harm your followers with sharp knives, causing them pain. Buddha calmly replied, no matter the weapon you use, you may harm their bodies, but you cannot shake their unwavering faith in the Dharma. Seeing that threats were ineffective, the Demon King continued, I will spread slander and false rumors about you, damaging your reputation and driving people away. Buddha smiled and responded, lies and slander cannot harm a true practitioner. Slander is like an arrow shot into empty space, eventually falling to the ground without any effect. Finally, the Demon King resorted to a more sinister plan, smirking as he said, you wish to enlighten all beings, don't you? Well then, in the degenerate age, I will send my descendants to join your order, wearing monks' robes and posing as your disciples. They will distort the scriptures, break the precepts, and commit immoral acts. Through them, your teachings will decay from within, and no one will trust them anymore. Upon hearing this, Buddha fell silent for a long time. He understood that attacks from the outside could never destroy a community if it remained strong from within. But if corruption arose within, faith would erode, and ultimately, nothing could save it. This thought deeply saddened Buddha, and from his compassionate heart, 2 streams of tears rolled down his cheeks. Seeing Buddha's tears, the Demon King laughed triumphantly and departed. Buddha knew that when false practitioners appeared, ordinary people would find it challenging to discern genuine monks from impostors. This internal decay, like tiny insects eating away at a mighty tree, would ultimately bring down even the strongest of communities. Buddha once taught, a lion can fiercely fend off enemies, but it is powerless against the small insects on its own body. A community cannot be destroyed by external forces if it is united from within. However, disintegration from within is the greatest threat. A community can only endure if each member prioritizes the common good, sets aside personal ego, lives for noble ideals, holds themselves to high standards, and treats others with kindness. This story reminds us of the power of unity and inner resolve. When each individual lives responsibly, cherishing and protecting the community, and when everyone acts for a common purpose, that community becomes an unbreakable force. Conversely, if harmony is lacking and members focus only on personal interests, disintegration from within is inevitable. The Buddha's tears serve as a reminder that, in any community, the inner strength of each member is the most enduring power, helping it withstand any challenge, be it external threats or malicious schemes. Story 11. In times of crisis, doing this well can transform your fate. The ancients taught that in times of crisis, performing good deeds can change one's destiny, bringing a better life. During the Qing dynasty, there was a famous fortune teller named Qin Shi. Once, Qin Shi met a wealthy merchant named Xie Er and 2 of his friends. Observing the fortunes of Xie Er's friends, Qin Shi predicted that they would soon experience success and good fortune. However, when it was Xie Er's turn, Qin Shi hesitated, then sighed, "This Mid-Autumn Festival, I fear you may not survive." Hearing this, Xie Er was deeply troubled, but he resigned himself to fate. Determined to make his remaining time meaningful, he decided to donate his entire fortune to charity, helping the poor in the hope of alleviating some of their suffering. As the Mid-Autumn Festival approached, Xie Er was strolling through town in what he thought were his final days when he unexpectedly encountered Qin Shi again. Qin Shi was astonished to see that the dark aura of death had disappeared from Xie Er's face. With excitement, he exclaimed, "Your fate has changed. You now have a blessed and long life ahead. Surely, you have performed great deeds of compassion." At that moment, Xie Er realized that true kindness and compassion can indeed alter destiny. The ancients taught that longevity and fate can be reshaped through human will and a compassionate heart. A life of health and happiness is the result of accumulated virtue and moral cultivation. Doing good deeds and thinking kindly will undoubtedly help transform fate, bringing happiness and prosperity. Story 12. Confucius teaches two students a profound lesson on nobility. During the spring and autumn period, Confucius had two distinguished students, Zilu and Zhigung. Each performed acts of kindness, yet Confucius evaluated them differently, praising Zilu but criticizing Zhigung. Zhigung was a wealthy merchant who, while traveling abroad, redeemed a fellow countryman from slavery. According to the laws of Lu, anyone who redeemed a citizen would be reimbursed by the government. However, Zhigung refused the repayment, which led people to regard him as noble. But when Confucius heard about this, he criticized Zhigung, saying, "By refusing the repayment, you may cause difficulties for others. When others see a countryman in need of help, they might hesitate because they fear they cannot match your nobility. This hesitation could prevent them from stepping forward to help." In contrast, another time, Zilu encountered a drowning man. Without hesitation, he jumped in to save him and, in gratitude, the man gave him an ox. Zilu happily accepted the gift and brought it home. When Confucius heard of this, he praised Zilu, saying, "Your actions will encourage others to be brave in helping others because good deeds are rewarded." Confucius did not judge actions by appearances or immediate benefits. Instead, he considered their long-term impact. Sometimes, what appears to be good on the surface can lead to unintended negative consequences, while actions that seem contrary to conventional wisdom can have a positive influence. In modern life, we too need to be discerning when choosing our actions. Popular trends or widely accepted information may not always be correct or reliable. Looking deeply into the essence and long-term effects of our actions is a lesson we can learn from Confucius' teaching. Story 13. In injustice and suffering, always hold on to a kind heart. The famous writer Dale Carnegie once said, "Instead of condemning, try to understand others." Empathy and tolerance are like golden threads that connect people. When we harbor resentment, we are the ones who suffer most. Kindness begins with thinking of others, no matter the circumstances. During China's Sui dynasty, there was a renowned scholar named Zhang Wenyu, famous for his knowledge and deep understanding. He respected propriety and always treated others with tolerance. Once, Zhang suffered severe pain in his lower back, and his family hurriedly called a doctor. The doctor, claiming to be a miracle healer who used charms, attempted treatment, but Zhang's condition worsened. Despite the pain, Zhang Wenyu did not get angry and simply asked the doctor to leave kindly. Later, his wife noticed his condition and asked what had happened. Zhang simply said he had accidentally injured his back. He did not tell anyone the truth, as he didn't want to harm the doctor's livelihood. To Zhang, enduring a bit of pain was insignificant compared to the hardship the doctor might face if he lost his means of earning. His tolerance and kindness became an inspiration for future generations. Another story tells of Min Ziqian, a disciple of Confucius known for his virtue and filial piety. Min's mother passed away when he was young, and his father remarried, having two more sons with his stepmother. However, Min's stepmother did not treat him well and often neglected him. In winter, she prepared warm cotton-padded coats for her two sons, but gave Min only a thin coat filled with cattail fiber. One freezing day, Min's father asked him to pull a cart. Cold and shivering, Min was unable to continue. Frustrated, his father scolded him severely. But when Min's thin coat tore, revealing the cattail filling, his father realized the situation and angrily prepared to send his wife away. Min knelt down, pleading with his father to forgive her, saying that if his stepmother stayed, only he would suffer, but if she left, all three sons would go cold. Min's kindness and filial piety softened his stepmother's heart, bringing peace and harmony to the family. Through his tolerance and compassion, he turned an adverse relationship into a positive one, preventing his family from falling apart. As the ancients taught, in the face of injustice, remain patient and keep a pure heart, using kindness to dissolve all resentment. Min Ziqian's story reminds us that in life, we should always maintain kindness and forgiveness. Even when hurt or in pain, nurture a seed of goodness in your heart, so that one day it may bloom into fragrant flowers that spread kindness and peace to the world. Story 14, Understanding Time in the I Ching, the Key to Transforming Life. In ancient Chinese philosophy, time or timing is a vital concept in the I Ching, Book of Changes. The character Doi in Confucius saying Doi Dao Min Dao goes beyond just time. It holds deeper meanings of opportunity and situational awareness. The ancients believed that everything in life has its rises and falls, and for one's career or life to be successful, it must align with timing. Confucius taught that each person should know how to wait for the right time and act when time arrives. While people can prepare and cultivate themselves, they cannot create opportunities. Like a tiger that loses its power when lost on the plains, or a dragon mocked by fish in shallow waters, even a hero can be thwarted if they do not have the right timing. But when the right time arrives, one must seize it swiftly, as if the heavens were delivering rain after a drought. The meaning of time. Confucius' great legacy is not only the concept of Ren, benevolence, but also time. He considered time to be an active force that requires people to adapt rather than forcefully control it. People may prepare, but they cannot decide the moment of success. This is why the phrase Doi Dao Min Dao serves as a reminder to assess the times and adapt appropriately. The example of Xiang Yu. When besieged by Qing forces at the Battle of Jiulu, Xiang Yu lamented in despair, "The time is against me, what can I do?" Despite his extraordinary strength and courage, Xiang Yu could not overcome fate when the times changed. Ultimately, he took his own life by the Wu River, leaving behind a lesson in the sorrow that comes from failing to understand and preserve timing. The lesson of time. The concept of time also teaches that in challenging situations, a wise person remains humble and does not act recklessly. They bide their time, waiting for the right moment to act. Confucius once said, "A gentleman holds his talents close, waiting for the right time to act," meaning a wise person does not boast, but patiently preserves their integrity, ready to reveal their abilities when the opportunity is ripe. Confucius taught not only knowledge, but also the importance of acting according to timing. This does not imply pessimism or passivity, but rather a positive waiting. When the time arrives, the wise act quickly, effectively, and achieve fulfilling results. The concept of time teaches that understanding timing and opportunities is crucial for success. Like nurturing a tree and waiting for harvest season, one must be patient until the time is right. A wise person knows to hold steady when needed and act at the right time when opportunity appears. This profound wisdom from the I Ching left by Confucius reminds us always to heed the times and act accordingly. Story 15, Self-Discipline as the Path to Noble Virtue. A Zen master once said, "When the mind is at peace, the world is at peace." This emphasizes the importance of self-cultivation and inner calm, for a person who disciplines themselves not only benefits personally but also contributes to peace in the world. Many historical figures have set examples by being strict with themselves, creating shining models of virtue. The story of Su Heng, unwavering against temptation. Su Heng was a renowned philosopher and scholar of ancient times. Once, while fleeing disaster with a group, they passed by a large pear tree laden with ripe, refreshing fruit. Many eagerly picked the fruit to quench their thirst and relieve their fatigue, but Su Heng calmly sat under the tree without touching a single pear. When asked why, he replied, "The pear tree may lack an owner, but does that mean my mind should lack one too?" Su Heng's actions demonstrated his unwavering integrity, refusing to abandon his principles even in difficult circumstances. Regardless of others' actions or temptations, he lived by his own values, actively maintaining his resolve. Su Bo and the lesson of self-improvement. Su Bo, a distinguished scholar of the Ming Dynasty, practiced self-discipline from a young age by monitoring his behavior. He kept 2 jars on his desk, one with black beans and another with yellow beans. Each time he did a good deed, he added a yellow bean. When he made a mistake, he added a black bean. At first, the black bean jar filled up faster, but he continued his efforts. Over time, the yellow beans outnumbered the black, reflecting his character's improvement. Even after becoming an official, Su Bo continued this practice, becoming a respected and virtuous figure of his era. Su Bo's story highlights the importance of self-monitoring and holding oneself accountable for every action and word. He not only set high standards for himself, but also adhered to them, showing that true virtue must be cultivated from within and maintained with persistence. Self-discipline, the path to virtue. The ancients said, when propriety is lost, law arises; when law is lost, chaos ensues. When people lack virtue and self-discipline, society descends into disorder. Self-discipline enables individuals to cultivate themselves and respect one another, leading to a harmonious society. Laozi once said, when the way is lost, virtue arises; when virtue is lost, benevolence arises; when benevolence is lost, righteousness arises; and when righteousness is lost, propriety arises. This describes the decline from natural virtue to enforced rules and laws. Today, as society faces many challenges and instability, personal responsibility and self-discipline are fundamental for harmony, reducing dependence on strict regulations. A self-cultivated person won't be easily drawn into wrongdoing, even without oversight. The examples of Su Heng and Su Bo remind us that self-discipline is the foundation of noble virtue. When each person cultivates inner virtue, society becomes peaceful, and life truly flourishes in tranquility. Story 16. Lu Bang became emperor by knowing how to listen. The ancients had a saying, honest words are often unpleasant to hear. This is illustrated in the story of Lu Bang, the founding emperor of the Han Dynasty. In 207 BCE, after capturing Xianying and entering the Qing palace, Lu Bang was surrounded by vast riches and countless beautiful women, stirring within him a desire to indulge. Noticing this, Fan Kuai, one of Lu Bang's loyal generals, asked, "Do you wish to become a wealthy man or the ruler of the empire?" Lu Bang replied without hesitation that he wanted to rule the empire. Hearing this, Fan Kuai sternly advised, "Wealth and women are what caused the fall of the Qing dynasty. If your majesty truly wants to rule the empire, you should not linger in this place of luxury. Return to Bashang to avoid repeating their mistakes." Initially, Lu Bang ignored the advice. Seeing this, his strategist Zhang Liang approached him and spoke directly. The Qin king lost his country because he failed to follow the principles of good governance. Now that your majesty has achieved great feats, you must live modestly and exercise self-control to uphold the path of a wise ruler. Honest words may be hard to hear but bring great benefits, much like bitter medicine that cures illness. I urge you to listen to Fan Kuai. Realizing his error, Lu Bang decided to seal the treasures, close the Qing palace, and return to Bashang. The story of Lu Bang shows that those with great aspirations must be able to hear honest words, even if they are uncomfortable. Just as the ocean can contain hundreds of rivers by placing itself lower, a person who accepts straightforward advice is better positioned for great achievements. Everyone likes to hear praise, but sweet words can lead to ruin. A ruler who fails to heed honest advice can become captivated by flattery, leading to arrogance and downfall. Liu Bang, by listening to the sincere counsel of Zhang Liang and Fan Kuai, maintained his resolve and rose to become emperor, rather than stopping short as merely a wealthy man. This story reminds us that true strength lies not only in speaking to others, but also in listening to advice from those around us, even when the words are difficult to hear. Story 17, The Unpredictable Truth and Deceit, How to Face the Human Heart. In life, victory and defeat are not always determined by opponents, strategies, or circumstances, but often by the human heart itself. Let's explore two famous strategies from the Warring States and Three Kingdoms periods to see the unpredictability of truth and the complexity of human nature. During the Warring States period, as Wei and Qi were at war, the general of Qi, Sun Bin, devised a decreasing kitchen strategy to deceive Pang Wan, the general of Wei. Sun Bin said to Tianji, "The Wei soldiers are brave and look down on Qi forces. Let's feign weakness to lure them." Tianji asked, "How will we lure them?" Sun Bin explained that they would reduce the number of cooking fires each day, making Wei think the Qi army was retreating and weakening. When Pang Wan noticed that the Qi army's kitchens were fewer each day, he confidently assumed they were fleeing. He ordered his troops to advance, only to find himself ambushed at Meiling. With arrows raining down on his forces, Pang Wan realized too late that he had fallen into Sun Bin's trap. Desperate, he drew his sword and took his own life, leading to the collapse of the Wei army. In contrast, during the Three Kingdoms period, Zhuge Liang, general of Shu, used an increasing kitchen strategy to safely withdraw from an encounter with Sima Yi of Wei. Summoned back to the capital under suspicion from the later emperor, Zhuge Liang ordered an increase in the number of cooking fires in Shu's camps, creating the illusion of growing strength. Sima Yi, a skilled but cautious general, saw the increasing fires and assumed Zhuge Liang was setting a trap. Unwilling to risk an ambush, he refrained from pursuit, allowing the Shu army to retreat safely. In these stories, we see that victory depends not only on clever tactics, but also on mindset. Pang Wan's overconfidence and arrogance led him into Sun Bin's trap, while Sima Yi's excessive caution caused him to miss the chance to defeat the Shu forces. These stories remind us that success sometimes requires not only strategic brilliance, but also clear-headedness and insight into human nature. By managing our ego and avoiding arrogance or hesitation, we can prevent hasty or pessimistic actions, remaining steady in all situations. Story 18. How Confucius' student governed and left a lasting legacy. Confucius had a student named Mitsuxian, who became a famous official known for his unique governing style and the deep affection he earned from the people. Rarely seen in court and often playing music, he still managed to bring prosperity and peace to Danfu, the region he governed. Here are two notable stories about his approach to leadership. A clever way of gaining trust from the ruler. When Mitsuxian assumed his role as magistrate in Danfu, he knew that the ruler of Lu might listen to meddlesome reports, which could interfere with his work. To prevent this, before leaving for his post, he requested that the ruler send 2 trusted clerks along with him. Once in Danfu, Mitsuxian asked these clerks to record his instructions. However, he repeatedly tugged at their elbows, making their writing illegible. Annoyed, Mitsuxian scolded them for their poor penmanship, prompting them to return to the ruler, claiming they could not work with Mitsuxian due to his constant interference. Upon hearing this, the ruler realized that Mitsuxian was subtly criticizing him for meddling too much. Understanding that Mitsuxian could not be effective without full authority, the ruler gave him complete control over Danfu. Thanks to this management method, Danfu soon prospered and became a peaceful region. Fishing and the lesson of managing people. Before taking office, Mitsuxian met a friend, Yang Shu, and asked for advice. Yang Shu, in a humble manner, told him he only knew a bit about fishing. He explained that when he placed his bait in the water, weaker fish would bite right away, while more cautious, quality fish like carp would be more wary and less easily caught. When Mitsusian arrived in Danfu, he was greeted by a large number of local officials. He realized that those who were eager to meet him might be flatterers with less capability, while the truly talented would likely be more reserved, needing time to build trust. Therefore, he quickly set about understanding the people's needs, inviting skilled and experienced individuals to join him in discussing and implementing effective policies for the region. Mitsusian's story teaches us that a successful leader is one who listens carefully and uses talent thoughtfully. He valued honest feedback, patiently won over the ruler to secure the autonomy he needed to be effective, and ensured he had the right people around him. With his intelligent leadership, Mitsusian earned the love and admiration of the people, leaving a lasting legacy of good governance and respect. Story 19: The Great Official, From High Status to the Path of Liberation. Since ancient times, envy, karma, and enlightenment have been profound lessons for humanity. The story of Shurji, a high-ranking official in ancient India, illustrates a journey of spiritual practice and awakening by a man who once committed harmful actions but eventually found liberation through sincere repentance. In the ancient kingdom of Peshawar, there was a minister named Shurji who enjoyed an esteemed position and immense wealth. Despite his riches, he felt an emptiness in his heart and began to ponder the meaning of life. One day, Sariputra, a disciple of Buddha Shakyamuni, sensed during meditation that Shurji's karmic connection to the path of enlightenment had ripened. The next day, Sariputra appeared at Shurji's residence with a begging bowl. Seeing him, Shurji respectfully knelt and invited Sariputra in for a vegetarian meal. After the meal, Sariputra explained the profound meaning of spiritual practice and liberation. His teachings helped Shurji realize that his lifelong existential anxiety was a sign urging him to seek an eternal path. Inspired, Shurji decided to relinquish all his possessions, entrusting his wealth to his younger brother, and embarked on the path of spiritual practice. However, Shurji's brother was worried that Shurji might return one day and reclaim his wealth. Driven by greed, he hired a bandit for 500 gold coins to kill Shurji. When the bandit found Shurji on a mountain and prepared to strike, Shurji asked, "I have no wealth. Why have you come to kill me?" The bandit replied that his younger brother had hired him. Shocked but without anger, Shurji requested that the bandit spare him enough time to attain some spiritual understanding before dying. The bandit refused, insisting on completing his task immediately. In his desperate situation, Shurji raised his arm and asked the bandit to cut off just one arm and spare his life so he could continue his spiritual path. The bandit agreed, severing his arm before leaving. Despite his pain, Shurji patiently dragged himself to Buddha Shakyamuni to pray for guidance. When they met, the Buddha compassionately explained Shurji's karmic consequences from a past life. Buddha recounted that in a previous life, Shurji had been the king of Benares. Once, while hunting in the forest, the king met a Pratyabhadata who was severely injured in his arm and used his foot to point out the direction for the king. Offended by the disrespect shown by the sage using his foot to guide him, the arrogant king angrily severed the sage's arm. As the sage ascended to the heavens before him, the king realized his grave mistake, falling to his knees in remorse. The king in that past life was none other than Shurji in this life. Due to the karma of injuring a spiritual practitioner, he had to endure the consequence of losing limbs or even his life in subsequent lives. Yet, because of his sincere repentance, he was spared from eternal suffering in hell and was eventually able to encounter the Dharma and attain liberation. Shurji's story is a powerful lesson on karma and the importance of repentance. In this world, all things are impermanent. Material wealth can vanish, empires can fall, but karmic consequences remain, following each individual. If we commit harmful acts, even if we do not face the consequences in this life, we will in the next. Conversely, if we turn away from wrongdoing and live virtuously, inner peace will grow, leading us toward liberation. Shurji exemplifies that even those who have erred can, through sincere repentance and dedicated practice, attain liberation and become arhats, realizing enduring virtue. Amid the changes and upheavals of life, this story reminds us to live with compassion and constantly cultivate kindness, for karma leaves no one behind.